It is now 292 days since Russia first invaded Ukraine. And at this time, achieving peace between the two countries appears to be sadly impossible. Today, Russia rejected Ukraine's peace proposal. Before the end of the year, President Zelensky had wanted Moscow to pull all of its troops out of Ukraine. Kremlin spokesman Dmitry Peskov responded to President Zelensky's proposal, saying that Kyiv needs to acknowledge its new territory's realities for there to be peace. Those Russian quote realities include the 4 regions of Ukraine Russia had annexed back in September, you may remember. Peskov declaring that those living in those 4 regions are now new subjects of Russia. The United Nations and Ukraine's Western allies, of course, have condemned those referendums as illegal shams. Meanwhile, according to the U.S. officials who spoke with CNN, the Biden administration is reportedly now finalizing plans to send Patriot missile defense systems over to Ukraine. Now, the number of missiles remains unknown, but a decision could be announced as early as this week. For more on this, let's bring in former U.S. military representative to NATO and retired Brigadier General Blaine Holt. Blaine, it is great to have you with us tonight, General Holt, as always.
Great to be with you, Bianca. Thanks for having me.
Always a pleasure. So first off, these Patriot missiles, it will be helpful, of course, for Ukraine. If you can talk about the advantage with these, and also why now, General Holt, and does this perhaps leave the U.S. stockpile short?
Yeah, so these are great questions. The Patriot missile system is one of the most advanced missile systems in the world. It's extremely competent at countering short-term missile threats. And we've seen that Kiev and other cities in Ukraine have just been barraged until we've seen the grid in this wintertime come down by almost 80%. So I think that the reason that the administration is taking this step is to save what's left of this electric grid, lest it just go away completely. The questions that I have is, why wouldn't we have given this system up in the early days? Because, you know, the country has been under this threat the entire time during the war. And then to your last point, what is our readiness level? Can we afford to be giving up this system? And where are our missile stocks?
I mean, obviously, we've heard about some munitions shortfalls, so that's something to keep an eye on. I know you're also keeping a close eye on what's happening on the ground. And there's these reports, General Holt, that Ukrainian forces have been successfully going after this Russian-occupied city, Melitopol, hitting a bridge, a hotel where Russian soldiers were. But their progress, some fear, also comes with the possibility that if Putin and Russia lose control of this really vital region, which we put the map up so our viewers can kind of get a sense of it, I'll let you get into that, but it could push Putin into some desperate acts. Tell us about the fighting that's happening there at this hour.
Yeah, it's so good to highlight this. Melitopol is an extremely strategic city at this point. The Ukrainians opened up an attack. They've hit a hotel that apparently had many Russian officers in it. And the battle is on for Melitopol. But if Ukraine is successful in taking it, they get 3 things. They get access to interdict Russian supply lines. They get a clear path towards Crimea, and they get a clear path back towards Zaporizhia to take that back as well. So it leaves them with a ton of options. And on the same exact day, it looks like the Wagner Group and Prigozhin have absolutely crushed the Ukrainian offensive or Ukrainians in Bakhmut.
Right, and you just worry that Putin, you said, might be pushed into some desperate acts because of the Ukrainian forces' win. It's a double-edged sword, if you will.
It really is. And we see the pressure building up in Moscow on Putin. Yesterday, he just canceled his big press conference that he always does at the end of every year. It usually lasts about 3 to 4 hours. That is off the table now, citing reasons that he needs to focus on the war. He does need to focus on the war if you're him, but that pressure is building. So does this then put Moscow into acts of desperation? Do they up the ante in terms of the weapons they're using? Do they change the cost imposition on Ukraine and the West? And we will all be concerned about their threats.
Just about 30 seconds before we let you go. You know, sadly, we talked about off the top of the block that both sides are so far apart with the request that talks and, you know, the thought of peace just seems like a fading hope. But obviously, this is the time of year where everyone's hoping for a miracle. Is there any way to handle that, to get talks initiated?
Yeah, I think that the United States needs to be pushing on both sides to drop all conditions, just drop them all, and get together at a neutral site and then start to have a discussion, because preconditions and the conditions are going to keep people from talking just the same, and that's our path to any kind of hope to get to this resolution point that we're all hoping to see.
We sure are. General Blaine Holt, as always, excellent information, and we really appreciate you giving us up-to-the-minute information on what's happening on the ground there as well. Thanks so much for being with us this evening.
Thank you, Bianca.
So there is some good news for American Paul Whelan to share with you. He remains, of course, in Russian custody, but securing his release remains a high priority for the Biden administration. In fact, today, Whelan's family releasing a statement saying Paul Whelan's sister, Elizabeth Whelan, met with White House officials yesterday virtually. Whelan's family learned that discussions between the U.S. and Russia will happen sometime this week. And Whelan's family saying, quote, "These initial steps give us hope that the third time is the charm." Meantime, the Whelan family also defended the Biden administration, saying they, quote, "made the right decision to secure WNBA star Brittany Griner's freedom." This comes after learning that the Trump administration was offered a prisoner swap of Russian arms dealer Victor Bout for Whelan. Still ahead, a mayor's decision is now putting her citizens at risk, some say. So was it the right move? That when the record continues.